In this lecture, we are going to implement the part 2 of Freshdesk integration with Salesforce. So what we are going to do is we are going to see how we can get all the tickets. We already have tested this API using Postman, and then we will see how we can get all the tickets related to a particular contact, a customer or our requester. And there is one more that we are going to see is how we can get all the contacts. So these are the three tasks that we are going to do, and then after that we are going to discuss about the assignment. So let's quickly start with this list all the tickets. So I have already opened my developer console, my class. So in our class earlier, what we talked about, create a contact, create a ticket, and all these two methods are accepting the dynamic parameters. That means we can call these methods either from a lightning component, lightning web component, or from any other handler classes where they can pass the parameters, and we can just create the ticket. And now we are going to talk about, first that we are going to see is how we can list all the contacts, right? So we already have tested this API using Postman. Again, we are going to refer the API. For any operation we wanted to have, we need to refer the API. So this is our API documentation. If you have not opened, please go ahead, open that API document by typing it to the Google saying that Freshdesk API document, and it is going to give you the first link, the very first link you need to click on. And then as we are going to talk about contacts, we just click on this contacts and then click on this operation called list all contacts. Now the first thing that you will see here, we got the method as a get. That means our method should be get, and this is our API endpoint. API endpoint, after we need to put that once we have got our base URL for our Freshdesk. Now if you scroll down below here, you will see this is a very sample code for getting all the contacts, and this is very easy, right? And in this C URL, you will, if you see, right, we are passing some authentication where we are saying username and password. In our case, we are using API key as a username and X as a password, but we have to pass the authorization here. So this is the endpoint that we are going to call. Just copy it, and you can see here this is the endpoint saying that contact endpoint, and that contact endpoint we have defined on the top of our class, which is a final variable, and that is what we are assigning inside of another variable called endpoint. Now we have created a label. If you have remembered, in our earlier lecture we have created a label which is having the value called like API colon X, this API key, and then we have this X value. Now we have got this into this variable, and then if you have noticed, we were using get, we were able to see the get method. That is why we are sending get request. The endpoint, this endpoint that we wanted to send here, even you can put the hardcode URL over here, but it's always the best practice to save it somewhere so that we can change it later on. That is what we have sent over here, right? Content type is application by JSON, because this is what we wanted to get from the system, and this is where we need to send the authorization, because if we don't send the authorization, you might have seen into the previous lecture we were getting the error called 401, that was unauthorized. That means the user was not authorized to make that request, to put that operation into the Freshdesk. So we must need to pass that authorization in all the APIs unless the authentication is no auth. So after we have passed this authorization, we are sending again. This is we already discussed to send the request. It is a risky, that's why we are putting into the try and catch, inside try and catch block. And we said this is a get request, that means we will be getting 200 status, and then we are just debugging whatever the response we are getting from the server. That's it. There is no rocket science on that, and there is nothing, we are not passing anything. If you wanted to parse this, what we can do is, you can just quickly get back to our Freshdesk. You can see here, this is kind of response that you are going to get. You can just copy from here only one contact record, because it is going to give you the list of contacts. You just need to copy only one object, and then go to the site called admin booster, paste your JSON over here, name the class, you can say Freshdesk contact, and generate it. Now what you need to do is copy this class name first, and we need to create a class. That's it. I have created a class over here. Now I'm going to copy the code. So this is the code that I have got, and post it over here. So now we have got, right, we have got this address, company ID. You can remove this extra values that I'm not going to remove over here. And for all the class, because these other companies we don't need, let's remove this. We don't need this as well. And then remove this CLS underscore, because that is not a valid, we can say that the class identifier. That's it. Now we have given all this. We have this method as well, which is returning a Freshdesk contact. I don't need this because we are somehow going to get the list of records, right? So we are going to remove this. Now we have got this contact. We wanted to parse our response inside that class that we have, but we know that this is going to return us the list of contact records, right? Here it is giving us array of contact records. So what I will do here is I will make an array of the class that we have developed, and I will say here contacts. And now again you just need to put the list of contacts, because this is where you want it to convert. And now what we will say here is we will say system.json.deserialize. Again it is asking two parameters, the string to be deserialized. A string is nothing, it is a body that we have created, and then where we wanted to deserialize is what is the type. This time it should be list of Freshdesk contact.class. Why we are saying here list of Freshdesk contact? Because it is returning us list of Freshdesk contacts. That is why. Now we have got this contact. You can just iterate over this, and what you can do is you can just say here contact. You can perform the logic over here, saying you wanted to create the contact into the system, Salesforce system, you wanted to upsert. You can do that. That is up to you. I'm going to leave it for you here. And we are just going to quickly test this method here. So let's quickly call this method and we'll see if we are able to get the data in a debug log or not, because we have done the debug. So we have got this debug only, and yes, we are getting here response from server, and then we are getting some error on 137. We will see why we are getting, but we are getting this response over here on the line number 119. And then after 119, this is the response we got, and then in the deserialization actually we are getting some error. And then next method that we have is, I'm just going to collapse this here. Now we have got this next method, which is list all tickets. Again the similar thing. What we did is we got the endpoints. This is the endpoint for listing all the tickets. You can again go through with the API. You can just find out the object called tickets wherever the ticket is, and then select the operation list all tickets. You will see that the method name is get. This is the endpoint. Sorry, that is for contacts. List all tickets. Yeah. Now we got the endpoint for tickets, and if you scroll down here, you will see, right, this is how we can get the tickets. Now that is the same. We have got this API here, the endpoint, and then again we got this username colon password. We set the method as get, got the endpoint, got set the authorization, and then we are just trying to debug over here. So this is the similar thing. The only thing that has been changed is the endpoint. So we're just going to change the method over here. It is saying that list all tickets. We will execute this and we'll see what response we are getting from the server. Either we're getting any error or any kind of thing that we are getting. So it is giving us some here. It is not opening this time, but we can open it manually. Debug only here, and we can see this is something called the ticket information that we have got requester ID, and it is saying that no action needed. This is the actual that we that we created using our Apex class. And the next that we have is how we can get the tickets related to a particular customer. This is also very important, I can say, concept where you have some contacts into the system, into the Salesforce, and under that contact you wanted to list all the tickets. How we can list that? So we are going to use email over here. We are not going to use requester ID because that is something you might not be having. Because think like that, if you are a customer and you wanted to list all the tickets related to yourself, you might not be knowing what actually your ID is. You must be knowing, or you must be remembering your email address. That's why we are going to use email over here. Now if you see in the same request, list all tickets, right? List all the tickets. If you see here, right, for the filters we have got a requester, we can say requester ID equal to ID, or what we can do is we can say email, right? We can pass the email over here into the URL. So what we are going to do is we are going to pass the email over here. So we will pass that email, and now it is showing that URL encoded, right? So we will see how we can pass. So this is our endpoint, ticket endpoint, and we have seen what we need to pass is colon email equal to, and this is the email that we need to pass, whatever the email we will get, but we need to pass as a URL encoded. So how we will get is, as we have seen that we have the class called encoding util, and then this has URL encode, so we can just use that method, and this is the string that we wanted to encode. And what is the algorithm? It is UTF-8. This is what we wanted to URL encode. Now we have prepared our URL similarly whatever is given in the API, like this. Okay, now what we will do is we will just quickly go ahead and call this method, and now we need to pass the email ID over here, the email ID of our contact. So we can just copy this email ID. We don't want to we just wanted to make sure that the email is exact. We don't want it to face a problem like typo mistake. Now let's quickly execute it. So we are able to see some sort of response, either success or error. But yeah, you can see a response from server, and we are able to see all the tickets over here. So this is like how you can get, these are the main operations that you can perform, that main business are looking for. But there are many more, like if you see here, if you open this, any tickets you open, and you can add a reply over here. So you might want it to fetch this replies as well, right? So you can also do all those things, and you can go through with this API and you can find all those. Next, what we have is assignment. That is also a very important part of this course, because we are going to have assignment most of the third-party system that we are going to integrate. So as an assignment, what you need to do is, first thing that you need to do is create a custom object in the Salesforce called Freshdesk ticket, and this API name should be fr_ticket. And then you can get the links, you can get the fields from this link, or you can use appropriate data type. And then you need to create a field on contact record, label it as Freshdesk ID, and API name as fr_ID. fr stand for Freshdesk. And then you can create either a Lightning Web component or a Lightning or a component which will have the input fields like this: email, subject, priority, status, description, and then it will have two buttons called create or cancel. And once you click on create, it should leverage, or we can say that it should use our method that we develop over here for creating a ticket. Okay, if there is any field that we missed into the mockup, please feel free to include that, because we are passing some extra parameter like source as well here in this. So please feel free to include that. Call that method, create the ticket into the Freshdesk and Salesforce as well. In the Salesforce, what all fields you need to fill up? You just need to fill up the ticket ID and rest of the fields that you are taking the input from the user. You don't need to worry about that, the extra field that you are getting from the system. You just need to worry about the ticket ID that you are getting. And if you go to the next slide, you will see like this is the object that I have already created for this. These are all the fields that I have created. If you wanted to refer this, you can see, because this is the label and the API key, APIs for the fields are not matching. So you can just refer this screenshot and you can create your fields, and then you can map all those fields. And one thing that I would like to say here is, this description field is nothing. It's a text area rich field where we can include the images as well. We will talk about that later, but yeah, make sure that you put that, you make that field as a text area rich. So this is it for this lecture, and we will meet into the next lecture. If you have any questions, please feel free to put into the Q&A section. Me and my team will definitely help you out. Thank you.